Okay, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us today for our webinar, Call for Sites in conjunction with East Herts District Council. We'll do some formal introductions in a bit, just after a little bit of housekeeping. So before we begin, the session will be around 45 minutes and we'll be sending out the recording afterwards. Time permitting, we'll be having a question and answer session towards the end, and you can submit your questions at any time throughout the webinar. Also, we'd be really grateful at the end if you could complete our short survey, which will be emailed to you, and that will really help us with future webinars. And finally, just to let you know, you're in listen-only mode, so we can't hear you. Back to introductions from presenters today. My name is Demelza Potter and I work in the business development team here at Cadcorp, and I predominantly work with our local and central government customers, helping them make the most from their investment in GIS. Also from Cadcorp is Simon. Over to you, Simon.
Thank you, Demelza. Good morning, everybody. My name's Simon Parker. I'm the pre-sales team leader at Cadcorp, and during this webinar, I'm going to provide a live demonstration of the new Call for Sites application. So I'll now hand you over to Richard.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Richard Freeman. I work for East Herts District Council. I'm currently a service improvement manager, while my background is in development management and planning, and I'll be explaining a little bit about how this project came about from the East Herts perspective. Looking forward to meeting you all.
Thanks, Rich. We also have Jenny McNicholas online from East Herts. She's going to introduce herself towards the end, as she may be able to help us with your questions today. Okay. The plan for today is to talk about Call for Sites and tell you a bit about Cadcorp. Some of you are joining us, may not have come across us before. We'll talk about our partnership with East Herts, and I'll introduce the Call for Sites sort of initial brief, but Richard's going to take over and take you through the project from an East Herts point of view. East Herts would like to communicate sort of the project to a wider audience and gather any feedback as a result of the project. And Cadcorp are launching an off-the-shelf product, so it's really sort of a dual purpose to today's webinar. Simon's going to follow that up with a demo and show you in practice the app so far, and I'll round up with questions and launch information and questions towards the end. Next slide, please, Gwen. Okay, for some context today, at a high level, what is Call for Sites? It's a council planning process for interested parties like landowners and developers to propose land sites which they may have potential for future development to support sort of housing or employment and other things within the area. Traditionally, this has been a paper process, and I understand it's a fairly sort of laborious process. So I guess some of you are here today because you are running a Call for Sites exercise in the near future. To find out if that is true, we would just like to run a poll. Onto the next slide, please, Gwen. Okay. So if you could launch that, what we would like to know, if your organisation is running a Call for Sites process within the next so many months or years, or perhaps you're unsure. So if you could select your option, if you know which option applies to your organisation, and we will gather those results in. Just give you a few seconds to submit them. Okay, Gwen, you want to close that poll off? It looks like potentially some of you are having problems with that poll. So perhaps we will skip on at that point. Thanks, Gwen. Okay, If we do manage to get any results for that, I'll come back to that a little bit later on. Okay, a little bit about Cadcorp for those of you who are new to us. We are UK based and focus on the development and delivery of our product Cadcorp Sys, which are mapping and GIS applications. We also provide complementary spatial data and consultancy alongside to complement that. Today, so we work alongside these sectors in green below, and today we're particularly working with yourselves in local government and planning in particular. GIS has historically sat within planning departments, so at Cadcorp we've worked with a number of different departments on different projects over the years, which brings me on to East Herts and a particular project we've been working on in the past few months. Next slide, please, Gwen. Okay, so East Hertfordshire have been a Cadcorp customer for a couple of years through their ICT partnership with Stevenage Borough Council, who are neighbouring council. They utilise cloud-hosted GIS and web mapping. Cloud was adopted to increase the sort of agility at the council and reduce their long-term IT costs throughout the partnership. And I must say, in deploying this particular app in the cloud, that's really sped up the sort of process for getting the app deployed and live at the council. Okay, next slide, please, Gwen. Just the initial brief that we were provided. So discussion started last year, and the software has been developed in partnership. The brief was for a cloud-based digital GIS site assessment application to accelerate both site submission and analysis to speed it up. The brief was in 2 parts or phases. I'm going to concentrate very much on the first phase today, which is now complete. If you could just hit next, Gwen. The first phase was to provide an easy-to-use digital submission with 3 main functions. That's map integration, so users could draw the area of interest. The second part was the option to upload a GIS file. And the third part was to submit site details and any related documentation. At this point, we're going to pass it over to Rich, who is going to tell you more about the project and process from an East Herts point of view. Over to you, Rich. You're on mute, Rich.
Yes, I am. It's clearly all going very well today. Sorry about that. I'm Richard from East Herts. I'm just going to explain a bit more about how this tool sits within the wider project from our perspective. For those of you who are planners in the audience, we are in a situation which I'm sure many people are familiar with. We've got a district plan which is just over 5 years old, and so we just started a review of it. As part of that, we've identified that we probably will need to accommodate some more growth in the districts, and so we're going through a call for sites process. When scoping out both the review of the plan and also this call for sites project, we decided that we wanted to see whether or not there was anything we could do a little bit innovatively, a little bit differently. And so we did apply to MHCLG for funding, and so this is part of a wider project for us, which is about looking at processes and whether or not digital tools can be used to plan, more effectively or save time or something like that. So as Demels has said, the first phase is what Cadcorp will be focusing on in this presentation today, and that is the digital web map. So that is a tool so that members of the public, site promoters, developers, etc., can submit their proposed sites to us for allocation digitally, and it goes straight into our GIS system. We think that this is quite useful for a number of perspectives, but one of the things is that it allows us to gather feedback around who our customers are and which members of the community we're reaching out to. The next two phases for that really are then what we do with that data after we've received it. The second phase is all about how we're going to analyze it. The tool does give us some automated constraint checking and things like that to allow us to pull on our existing data. And we're looking at a kind of a site assessment matrix so that it will prioritize which sites we think are most likely to be allocatable, so that those are the ones which our planning policy team can focus on first before moving on to others. So there's the kind of scoring criteria, which is quite common probably in a call for sites process, but doing that digitally as much as possible. We're very keen, though, to continue the project after that and hopefully look to the future once we've completed the call for sites and the local plan review process. What can we do with this data? How can we turn this into something which is tracking delivery in the district and impact of site allocation and build out and growth on other metrics, including economic opportunity and things like that? Could I have the next slide, please? Thank you. So these are the benefits which we're hoping to get from the project, and really using the tool as the starting point for this hopefully will allow us to realize these benefits. By having all of that data already within our systems, we should save a lot of time, both in digitizing submissions from members of the public from call for sites. So last time we did this in 2018, we had a very high number of sites coming forward, and so just the time spent putting those on systems, logging them effectively is a significant saving. But then it'll save time at the back end of the process as well. We'll be able to, as we get a clear understanding of the direction of our next local plan, and the sustainability appraisal for that suggests which development scenarios or strategies we might take forward. We can then run different scenarios using the system to see how sites could tie into that and what it might mean for distribution growth across the districts as a whole, say, and things like that. We can access much more detailed information as well by integrating it with all of our existing GIS data. And hopefully this will allow us to make better quality decisions about which sites to allocate by using tools to visualize what that means more effectively, and so really understand the potential impacts of site allocation in another level of detail. Could I have the next slide, please? So this is just how we've been getting on effectively. So we had already contacted Cadcorp about doing the first phase of this project before we managed to get funding from MHCLG. We are in an existing relationship with them where they already provide GIS services to us, so we were able to crack on with things very quickly. And then once we did manage to get funding, we've expanded the scope of this and started looking at the second and third phases. Cadcorp started working in detail with us in January, and the tool was really developed, I think it's fair to say, and pretty much ready to use by April, and so a very speedy process from our perspective. We've worked very closely together with kind of weekly and fortnightly meetings to unlock any barriers and move it forward. And then we tested it in May, and we were effectively ready to go. But the pre-election period around the general elections meant that we had to delay things. But it is now live. If you do want to suggest any sites in East Herts for allocation, please be our guests. As long, obviously, as you have an interest in the site. But it is there, and it is working, which we're very happy to hear about, and we're now moving on to the later phases of the project. Can I have the next slide, please? So how has it been for us effectively? As you can see from the slide there, we feel that this has been a really good project from our perspective to look at how to do things a bit differently and use digital tools a bit more. It's probably, for us as a planning department, one of the first projects which we've done to really try and leverage digital and innovative ways of doing things. And so just the process of doing that as a whole has been quite interesting for us to throw out some thoughts about how we work more generally and how we can look at other tools and try and integrate them into our processes to make things faster or better. We have had some barriers around things like the general election delaying things, but overall it's been a very speedy and collaborative project for us between us and Cadcorp. And if we could move on to the final slide, please. We are very keen to get feedback through either the Q&A or through the feedback form which you'll be sent, because this is a project which is funded by MHCLG to encourage use of digital tools. And so if this is something which you think is good or could be done differently or something like that, we're very keen to hear about that. If you are looking at doing this or similar projects, the link on the right hand side has got details of other projects which MHCLG have funded. If you're not aware of some of those, there have been some really interesting things around use of data from site allocation processes and things like that, which are really thought-provoking. And also the Open Digital Planning Network as well has really helped us to think about how we can use this data, and also thinking ahead to some of the data standards coming out of the Levelling Up and Regeneration Act as well, and supporting us through that. So a bit of a plug for them, but also maybe that's helpful if anyone is just starting to think about this kind of process. Those are all the slides from me, so I'll hand back to you, Demelza, but I'm around later to answer any questions if needed. Thank you.
Thanks, Rich, for taking us through that background and process. Now we're going to pass across to Simon, who is going to deliver a demo so you can see the app in practice today. Over to you, Simon.
Thank you, Demelza and Richard. So, yep, we've heard all about Core for Site. So let's now take a look at the application in action. So for those of you who are perhaps familiar with our software, you might actually recognize this interface. So this is our web mapping interface, which is a modern, sort of simple, and it's intuitive to use. And we're actually using this interface to deliver the Core for Sites application. So on your website, you might have a link which takes you to this particular interface. It will display Ordnance Survey mapping for your local authority area. And then on the left-hand side is the beginning of the Core for Sites submission process. So I'm going to say that the process is sort of split into three different parts. So step one is sort of accepting a disclaimer or terms and conditions. Step two is plotting the site boundary, and then step three is providing information about that proposed site via a form. So let's run through the process of submitting a site. So this is step one here on the left hand side. So this is a sort of terms and conditions. So as a local authority, you're going to be handling personal data. So this is just sort of an opportunity to kind of share how this information is going to be stored and managed by yourselves. And in this sort of text here, you can customize it, and you can have also links to your website. I think most local authorities tend to have sort of pages on the websites providing more information about this topic. So you could use links to guide users to further information if they want to read more. But once they're happy with that sort of disclaimer, terms and conditions, tick the box at the bottom to accept them, and then we can click next. So the second step of the process is the kind of the definition of the site boundary. So here we're requesting sort of the user to plot a boundary for the proposed site. And to make this step as easy as possible, and we're actually providing three sort of different methods for plotting the site. And each method actually has its own sort of description as well, just to help guide the user. So I'm based in York today, so I'm going to zoom into the map just to find the site that I want to propose. And I'm going to run through these three different options for plotting the site boundary. So the first option is called select, and this is likely to be sort of the preferred option for most. And this is where you can kind of select land parcels on the base map to plot the site. So you'll use probably Ordnance Survey master map data for this particular purpose, and that's what we can see currently on the map. So to use the select feature, we just hit start on the start button there, and then just basically click on the land parcels to build up that site boundary. So if I click in the center of this land parcel, we can see it highlighted there. If the site boundary kind of expands multiple land parcels, you can just carry on sort of clicking on the map until that site boundary is fully represented. If you make a mistake and you've clicked a land parcel by mistake, you can click on it and remove it for inclusion, and yet click again to add it. If multiple features, multiple land parcels are selected, using this option, basically at the end of the submission process, all of these land parcels are merged together to create a single site boundary. And then once the users define their site boundary, on the left-hand side here, they can hit the next button to proceed to the next stage. But before I do that, I actually want to show you the other two options for plotting the site boundary. Now, if I scroll to the bottom, we've got this little start over button. So if I select that, it basically deletes the existing drawing, and then you can start again. And for the purposes of this demonstration, it gives me an opportunity to show you the other two options. So the second option is draw. So this is basically freehand drawing of the site on the map. So you just click around on the map to define your site boundary. So perhaps if I click start here, I can start going around the map and clicking to capture my site boundary. So I could be following the base map underneath, and I can go around basically clicking on the map to define my site boundary, and then I can double click to finish, and then we get a preview of that sort of a freehand drawing of the site boundary. If I select start over at the bottom, just to clear the slate, and then I can show you the third option, which is upload. So this is where you can upload a site boundary to the map. So the site boundary must be stored in a GeoJSON file. So this is a type of GIS file format, if you're not familiar with that one. And many sort of developers or site agents will have this already. So they could use this option to simply upload the file which contains the site boundary. So here they could just select this option. It will allow them to browse their computer or network, select the GeoJSON file, click open. It basically uploads a file, and then you get a preview of the site boundary there on the map. So that summarizes the three sort of different options there for plotting the site boundary. Each option's really straightforward to follow. And as I said, there are instructions here as well to guide the user along the way. So once you've plotted that boundary, we can finally hit next in the bottom to proceed to the third step. So the third and I guess final step of this process is the form. And this is where you're requesting information about the proposed site. Now, this particular form example is split into 11 different sections, and the length of this form will depend on how much information you want to gather for this consultation stage. In this particular example, it's requesting sort of contact details, information about the site location, any known constraints information, its sort of current land use, land ownership, and site access, to name but a few. And the form itself, to kind of manage the collection of that information, you can utilize a combination of sort of mandatory and sort of optional fields. You can have sort of free text fields, or you can use drop-down lists with sort of predefined values that you can check. And some of the fields also have validation checks as well. And I'll show you an example of that very shortly. And in the form, you may also get additional questions depending on how you answer sort of specific questions in the form. And then finally, you can also provide opportunities for documentation to be uploaded as part of the site submission as well. So during my demonstration, I'm not going to run through the whole entire form, but what I'm going to do is just run through the first sort of 4 steps, just so that I can show you some of the different controls for kind of managing that data entry. And then afterwards, I'm going to jump to sort of a completed form, so I can kind of show you the process and what happens at the end. So this particular first step of the form is just asking to provide some contact details. So I'm just going to proceed to fill in the various sections of the form. So let's just say we're a land agent. So Cadcorp's land developer today, so perhaps I'm representing a client. So the client is Field Lane Farm. I'm going to add in some details of our office. And then the next field, postcode. So this is sort of an example of a field where we have a validation check. So postcode is one of them. So it will check that a correctly formatted postcode has been given. So if I just sort of drop in a load of A's into this particular field, we get a little prompt there to say, no, this value isn't a valid postcode. Yep, so we can go in and enter a correctly formatted postcode, and that removes that prompt. Underneath, I'm going to just add in a telephone number very quickly. And then before I complete the form, in the bottom right-hand corner, we've got the next button. So at the moment, we can see that's currently grayed out. And that's because not all of the mandatory fields that are set in this part of the form have been completed. So I've completed all the different fields except email. So email must be a mandatory requirement. So I'm going to add an email address, and this is also a field of a validation check as well. So it'll also check that a correctly formatted email is provided. So as we can see, as I start typing, we're getting the sort of the prompt underneath. So as I complete that entry, we can see it's validated, and in the bottom right-hand corner, next button is no longer grayed out, and I can proceed to the next stage of the form. So as you go through the form, along the top, you can also monitor your progress. So here we've moved to step 2, and this is a really short one, just one question asking about our interest in the site, and this is using a drop-down list with predefined values. So I'm going to say I'm a land agent and move on to step 3. Step 3, asking about details of the site. Just for demo today, we'll just keep this quite straightforward. So the site is in York. It doesn't have like a postal address as such. It's just a field. So I'll just say this is Field Lane. And then as we move on to step 4, this one is all about site ownership. And the reason I wanted to kind of go this far in the form is at the moment, this particular form about site ownership is asking 3 questions. So am I the current owner of the site? Am I aware of the proposal? And what is my interest in the site? But if I jump to question 2 here and answer this as a yes, as a result of selecting that question, additional questions are presented to me. And these particular questions are all about land availability. And the bottom one here is actually requesting the upload of documentation. So it's requesting evidence, such as like a signed statement from a landowner, just to confirm, that site is available for development, change of use, or whatever that proposal might be. So if I just click on this form, opens up the where you can browse your network or your computer. The files could be PDFs, could be images, could be text files. So here I can attach and upload that documentation as part of my site submission. So the form does support the upload of documentation if you require it. So in terms of completing the form, I'm going to stop there because I think I've shown you all the different sort of methods for managing sort of the data entry. And just for demonstration purposes, you probably don't want to watch me complete the rest of the form this morning. So what I'm going to do now is just switch to an example where I've completed all 11 steps of the form, so we can take a look at what happens at the end. So I'm going to just jump to another tab in my browser where I've done that. So I've reached the final form, completed the form, and then right in the bottom corner, we have this button which says View Form Summary. So if we select that, this basically gives me an opportunity to review all the answers before submitting the form. Along the bottom, you can jump to the different sections of the form, so you can review all of your responses. If you need to make a change, they can hit the back button, and then that just returns you to the form, and you can utilize this top section here to sort of move and navigate to the different parts of the form to make any changes to your responses. But once we're happy, go back to the end. We'll click View Form Summary, and then in the bottom right hand corner, we've got Submit Form. So basically at this point, the site boundary that we defined at the beginning and all that information that was supplied in the form is saved to a database. And we have this confirmation on screen to confirm the submission. And then 2 confirmation emails are sent as well. So one email gets sent to the email address provided in the form. So that's, the person who submitted the site. So that's the email address there. And then I can show you sort of an example of the email. So if I just close the browser and just open up an example email. So this is actually from a previous site I submitted this morning. We could have waited for the email for the one that I've just shown you in the application, but just wanted to play it safe for this live demo, just in case email exchange is busy and we're waiting a few minutes for that email to arrive in my mailbox. But the content and the format of this email is fully configurable. So customize this to your liking. My example basically includes sort of a reference number and date and time of submission, but you could have any text that you want in this confirmation email. And then that second confirmation email can also be sent to sort of a local authority mailbox, so that colleagues, officers are sort of notified when a site is submitted as well. So that really sort of concludes my demonstration of the Call for Sites application. So I hope you agree for the kind of the end user, it's a really straightforward interface for them to navigate. And with that modern interface, it looks really slick compared to perhaps your previous consultation methods, which would have most likely involved sort of paper forms. And speaking of paper forms, and we heard from sort of Richard earlier, a huge benefit for yourselves is that all that data is being captured digitally from source, and that's going to save a lot of admin hours internally. And I've had sort of personal experience of that. I used to work in planning policy for a local authority, so we used to spend a lot of hours sort of performing data entry and processing all of these paper forms. So once that call for site submission period ends, the data, which includes that site boundary, geometry, and all that information gathered in the form will be offboarded to you, ready for the next stage of the consultation process. So thank you for watching my demonstration. And at this point, I'll hand you back to Demelza. Thank you.
Thanks, Simon. Thank you for taking us through the process. If you do have any questions, there is a Q&A box, so feel free to carry on asking those questions if you haven't done so far. But as site submissions sort of come to a close at East Hertfordshire towards the end of September, we're really pleased to be launching the Cadcorp Call for Sites application. It's actually a package which includes web mapping and connections to Ordnance Survey background mapping. There is a GIS database in the background and a space for document storage as well. And there is also an amount of configuration required, which we will complete for you. There's lots of benefits because it's ready to be deployed. We offer quick and easy onboarding. There's various options for integration. Lots of you out there have different GIS systems, but we can discuss the options with you. And it's also independent of other Cadcorp products, so I don't think you need to have any Cadcorp products already. Next slide, please, Gwen. Okay, if you'd like to discuss the service sort of in more detail, there are our contact details. Please get in touch. Obviously, you can ask more questions in the survey at the end or contact us directly on those details there. The journey isn't complete, and we look forward to working with East Hertfordshire on their future phases going forwards. And with that in mind, let's skip over to the questions, where I'll just ask everyone from the presenter side of things, including Jenny, just to switch on their cameras so we can see everyone. And Jenny, we haven't heard from you yet today. Would you like to just introduce yourself?
So hi, I'm Jenny Manicholas. I'm the GIS and Digital Officer within the Planning Department at East Herts, and I have been involved in this project right from the start.
Thanks, Jenny. I'm going to come straight to you for the initial questions. For everyone on the line, carry on inputting questions if there's something you'd like to ask. So from Joe, how are you finding the tool and what time savings are you anticipating from the tool?
So as Richard said previously, the tool is live and we are receiving a good quality of different submissions from the big agents to landowners, and to have everything all in one place, digitised, all the information that's submitted digitised is such a positive, and to be able to view it immediately is such a positive for us.
Great. And Rich mentioned a second phase, and Harry's asking what data and constraints you plan to use.
So we're looking at using the data that's been submitted within the form, like if it's available, the site ownership, and then we're looking at key constraints as well, like flood zones, triple SIs, heritage assets, just to name a few. And then we're going to look at getting a bigger picture of the location. So we're going to look at current amenities, schools, GP surgeries, and then transport links, agricultural land classification. We're going to try and make the data work harder for us, so we have better informed decisions that we are making. All the data that we're looking at is going to be available either in-house or through a third party.
Thanks, Jenny. And one question, again, probably for you, Jenny. Have the council had much pushback from non-tech savvy proposers trying to submit sites on paper?
Actually, no. We've had maybe one come to us and say, I can't do this, but then we explained and they've done it. So no, not really. We've had anything come back to us. It's been quite quiet, just seeing all these lovely sites come in.
Great news, thanks, Jenny.